Critics say cult, members say covenant. Who's right? Welcome back to Saints Unscripted. Today we're diving into a topic, talking with the panel about a topic that is both powerful and polarizing: high demand religions. Now, if you're a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, you know that oftentimes we are placed in that conversation. And if you've been on TikTok for more than 30 seconds, you've seen the term Mormon and cult be placed together. And then there's the Exmo journey, where members who have left the church recount their journey on their personal profiles or these popular profiles. And in both, headlines question whether the church's structure holds or hurts. Yet for many within the church, these things that people deem as high demand or things that people deem as too much pressure, for members oftentimes brings clarity, spiritual growth, community building. So the perspective is different. Things that people see as controlling or as burdens, we see as freedom, as a pathway to deepen our relationship with Jesus Christ to get the best out of life. So is it oppression or is it opportunity? Today we're joined by several great young LDS voices, Sarah Sun and Caden Baylor from All Those in Favor. Let's get after it. All right, y'all, the consensus online, we're a cult. High demand religions, pushing people out, hurting people's testimonies. What do we think?
No. The online consensus is wrong, like absolutely wrong.
Put us on game, bro. Put us on game.
I crash out about this. I've crashed out about it in like 20 videos. But if you say the word cult or brainwashing or high demand religion in a negative context, probably just going to assume that you haven't read anything about this. And it's because the scholarship is extremely consistent. And psychologists and sociologists of religion have even found the exact opposite. They've found that the religions that are very high demand and very exclusive are the ones that have the highest growth rates and the highest rates of happiness, like nearly across the board. There's going to be exceptions. When you're dealing with sociology, you're talking about generalizations, but it's called the strict church hypothesis. It's this entire field of study that's dedicated to figuring out why these high demand religions have such high happiness and high growth. Like the Amish are destroying everyone right now in growth and happiness. Oh, wow. And that is extremely high demand. And here's why. There's a thing called costly signaling, which means that if it is difficult to live your faith, if it's not easy to demonstrate to others that you are serious about this, it eliminates this thing called free riders. There's a term in economics called free riders who take the benefits of a public service without paying into it. So like, I've never donated or given a cent back to FM radio in my life, but I've listened to a lot of FM radio growing up, not anymore. But so I'm a free rider. I haven't put into the system what I'm getting out. Yeah. So that is why you see like the growth rates continue to grow. They continue to go up because when we as Latter-day Saints, when we don't drink coffee, when we don't drink tea or alcohol, or we go to the temple, or we serve in callings and get no money for it, it's hard to fake your testimony when you're being asked all of that.
When people see that and it's meaningful. Like you can think the Mormon church is the worst thing ever until you meet someone that you think is a terrific person and you're like, wow, you're sacrificing all of this for your faith? Like your faith means that much to you? And at the end, like no matter what presuppositions you bring into that, that is going to leave an imprint on your mind. That like that costly signaling is more meaningful than whatever anti-religious rhetoric you picked up online.
Yeah. I think some people would hear that and say, well, that's exactly the same thing of a cult, is they demand a lot of you so that you feel like you've given so much you can't get out. And I think the difference between a cult and what you're describing is that the buy-in that we get comes from seeing the positive fruits of these demands. Like, I can't think of a single person who's achieved extraordinary accomplishment without having put in extraordinary effort. And when you think about the mission of like the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, it's preparing people for perfection. Like, yeah, that's gonna take a lot of work, but we were given the guidelines and the tools to be able to progress in ways that we can see ourselves becoming more like Christ.
Yeah, and the sunk cost thing, that's what they call it, like sunk cost. Like the costs you put into it are sunk. That doesn't work. Like that maybe explains the growth rate. That maybe explains why people stay in the religion. But it doesn't really explain why the happiness levels of all of these groups across the board are so much higher. Hasidic Jews and the Amish and members of the church, like the more demanding it is, generally speaking, the happier the people are.
Yeah, and I think to go right back to your point as well, there has to be some sort of standard. There has to be some sort of sacrifice that you make. And I think people forget that we are operating within a global religion. So it's nearly like, I don't think people understand how hard it is to get everybody on the same page to live something that doesn't make cultural sense to everybody. Let's say that we had like a group of 12 people that all looked alike, spoke alike, acted alike. It's easier to come up with like rules for them to abide by that won't be weird to them. But now you expand that to 100, you expand it to 1,000, now you expand that to 1 million. And now like you expand to 16, 17 million, but you also let 8 billion people go look at it. Yeah. When you analyze it, it's going to be weird to you, but there has to be a standard. So when people say, oh, it's a cult, that's what it takes to be successful in anything in life, that you have to have a standard that you set and that you agree upon. And you have to call leaders that you trust to make those calls.
I think it's also this idea that like we trust our coaches. We trust our coaches to have more experience, more expertise than we do. And sometimes the things they ask us to do don't entirely make sense, but once we do them, we become better players, we become better artists, and in this case, we become better people.
I love that. I did an interview with the world's leading scholar in cults, and they're not called cults anymore. So the term cult has not been used in scholarship in 50 years.
Oh, wow.
It's out. It's useless, it's vacuous.
It's just sensational.
Yeah, it's literally just been picked up by media outlets to fearmonger and people online that haven't read any of the
Drives views, drives profits. Okay.
So it's new religious movement now, and I spoke with the leading, like one of the world's leading scholars in this. He dedicated his life. His name's Lorne Dawson. He was a professor at Waterloo. He recently retired, but he was an excellent dude. And we had this whole conversation about the church and what it is and why it's successful. And we were talking about temples, and I was saying how I used to feel kind of ashamed of like talking about the temple on my mission and other contexts where people weren't familiar with it, because it seemed like secret and demanding and this esoteric thing. And he like kind of stopped for a second. He like spoke to me personally. He was like, "You need to be careful with this. You need to be careful, because from a sociological perspective, churches that dilute their standards ultimately fail. Churches that are requiring less and less of their members fail." I think it was Joseph Smith that said, a religion that doesn't demand the sacrifice of everything doesn't have the power to save. And I butchered that quote. It's a paraphrase. But like, people don't realize how much we're asked to do as a church. Like, people bring up tithing. They bring up the 10% thing. And I always want to say, no, dude. You covenanted with God, if you've been through the temple, to give up 100%. We are building Zion. You got to be 100% in, or you're not living up to that. And none of us are. That's the key. None of us are going to live up to that. And that's why the whole message of the gospel is Jesus Christ. We can't do it without him. We can't do it without his grace. But we've got to be all in. And that's why we're going to succeed. And that's why we're growing faster. Yeah. And we have the highest happiness level. That's why we're so sick.
Well, that's what bothers me about when ex-Mormon, anti-Mormon creators are like, well, you know what? The Mormon church makes you buy your salvation. If you can't pay that 10% to get into the temple, you can't be saved. And it bothers me so bad. Because I'm like, if that's do you realize that you want to go into the temple, but you're upset about the 10%? What do you do in the temple? You give up 100%. That's the point of going to the temple, is you submit to the Lord. And this isn't like, oh my gosh, Mormons are so demanding. Like, no, this is read the Gospels. Read the Sermon on the Mount. Like, this is not about salvation as much as it's about submission. Like, dude, we receive the grace of Christ, and the grace of Christ empowers us to submit to Christ. And all of this cult media, it's so prevalent, it's so sensational, and it all comes from anecdotal experience. And there's no organization on earth that doesn't have negative anecdotal experiences from some of its adherents. Not to minimize the experiences of those who maybe have had a negative experience in the church, but one person online saying, hey, I grew up in a Mormon family and this is what my Mormon family taught me, it's not sufficient to call this movement a cult or harmful because of the experience of one person. And whether you're Chick-fil-A, whether you're Starbucks, whether you're a university, no matter who you are, there's going to be adherents to your organization somewhere that had a negative experience.
Yeah, and if you're expecting to be a part of a global organization that's not going to have that, you might as well just live life alone. Like, there's no way that you can avoid that being a part of something that's going to have imperfect men. That's why I get frustrated when people are like, I don't like that bachelor, that's why I left. And it's just like, dude, so if everybody that didn't like how things were going just left, we would be left like it would be hurting everybody else's testimonies. Like the fact that I didn't feel good about black people in the priesthood, and I decided, hey, I'm going to lean into this and figure out why. Oh, now I can bear my testimony about the gospel in a different way that will allow people to feel more comfortable being in church. And it's just like, I feel like these little things, like when you run away from the work and you expect the results, that just like, that peeves me, man. That peeves me. There's no way that you can expect. I just think it's the arrogance that you think that Christ can submit below you. Yeah. Christ can submit below you, but you can't sacrifice 10%. We talking about, you want to go into the temple and you can't sacrifice 10%. Like, you look at that building, bro. We talking about practice. We talking about 10%, bro. Like, I don't know, man. I just get lit. I don't want to, but hey, I'm trying to spread love. So anyways, but bring us home. MVP.
Yeah,
bring us home.
Well, before we go home, I just want to touch on something that Baylor said, which is you can't let one person's negative anecdotal experience lead you to think that the entire institution is bad. And on the other side of that coin, one person's positive anecdotal experience isn't logically sufficient to say the entire organization is good. So that's why we need to look at patterns. And high demand religions having demanding methods of cultivating virtue is not unique to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Some of the most respected philosophical institutions and some of the most long-standing, less controversial religious practices have required immense dedication, right? We have the ascetics, we have St. Augustine, we have Lao Tzu, we have all these people from all these corners of the world who at some point in time theorized that in order to become more virtuous, there has to be a degree of sacrifice. So we're not alone in this. It's not like, oh, the LDS Church specifically is so demanding, it's so unique and therefore cultish. That's not true. It's just following this pattern, this divine law of what you put in, you get out.
Well, and name a hero who didn't sacrifice. We're not talking about Kobe because he woke up late and took the easy path. No, like that's Mamba mentality, because sacrifice brings greatness. And absolutely, everyone wants to say, no, once you feel uncomfortable, that's when you should go your own way and give up. Bro. And it's like, that's what we're celebrating. That's
mediocrity?
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like, people, oh man, everybody want to go to heaven, but nobody want to die. You know what I'm saying? So this is crazy to me, bro. But all in all, y'all, listen. What we're trying to do here is we're just trying to turn people's hearts inward. Try to figure out what you can do little by little in your life to be able to get the best out of your life. Because at the end of the day, we're not trying to convince you guys to think like us, to live like us. We want you to get what everybody wants out of this life, which is joy, peace, and happiness for you and for your families. And we do believe that living in a higher way, demanding more of yourself, will allow you to have to turn to Jesus Christ. Your weaknesses are a reminder that Jesus Christ exists. And who better to turn into the person that already wants to pour everything to you. But we want to hear your thoughts. We want to hear your questions. Thank you guys for being here for another episode. Make sure you guys check out our other videos. We have videos on discussing women in the priesthood. We have videos discussing how to navigate politics as Latter-day Saint members. So we love y'all. We're going to catch y'all later. Peace.